Okay, so I am live apparently, but you'll have to let me know in the chat if you can hear me and see me. But I am glad that we're all here once again on a good old Marauder Monday. And if you're watching this on replay, thanks for being here as well. We have some things to talk about tonight. We need to kind of game plan what to expect next year. We know 2023 is going to be a little bit crazy, and we have to be ready for it in whatever capacity we can be. So let's see here. We've got Stumpo Live saying 50 BMG, and I can deal with that. I appreciate that. Harbor Prepper 5x5. B's Nuts is here. We got Grisio Nemo 556x45. Scott B says hello. And you're right, I don't share my weather, so you're welcome for that. And then we have Dave Sickles here, Mike H. We have Jimmy of the Sea. And Jimmy of the Sea, I'll let you know, I live in a cold environment because I moved here out of necessity more so than desire. I did so to make my economic situation a little bit more improved for my family and I, and it has helped our lives quite a bit. But it was not a location we necessarily ever desired to move to. We just did so in order to better ourselves and to give ourselves a better advantage financially. So here we are. Now, let's talk about some things that are going on next year and be ready for whatever we might have to pivot towards in the sense of responding to a lot of the challenges ahead, because there's a lot going on. And just so everybody knows, hey, amazing grandma, good to see you. And yes, Alaska Prepper is awesome. Rudy's a very good guy, and I was over in that live stream tonight as well. So if you don't know about Alaska Prepper, make sure you check him out, and then let's hang out over here as well, and all be friends, right? Because that's what we're trying to do, is build some community here. So here's the thing. There's a lot of things going on that we have to pay attention to constantly. It can be a little bit overwhelming, right? And next year is going to probably get more difficult because things aren't just going to magically fix themselves because the calendar switches over to a new year and changes over from December to January, right? So we need to at least be aware of some of the things that are on the horizon, have an idea of what we should expect, and learn what we can while we're able to, right? The other thing I want to let everybody know is that this is probably the last live stream of the year, as I will take the day after Christmas off to be with my family, and then the next one will be literally January 1st. So I think this is our last Marauder Monday of 2022, and there are some excellent updates and cool announcements coming very soon regarding the channel, because there will be some slight changes, but not in the sense of the type of content or anything like that. But there are some new things I'm working on and some partnerships that I'm putting together that will allow me to do a lot more in the sense of bringing you good information, data, reviews, all kinds of stuff. So this channel is growing, and it's all because of you, and it's allowing me opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise. So thank you all for that, and you should definitely be patting yourselves on the back, because no matter what level of success that I'm able to achieve over on this platform, while also trying to spread information and knowledge related to preparedness, it wouldn't be possible or even existent without all of you. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Now, first things first, we know that this nuclear threat continually gets more progressive. It keeps moving forward. It's not necessarily calming down, although the mainstream media will often have you feel like it is, because they'll either stop talking about it for a certain amount of time, or they'll overlook any new revelations regarding it, because in their trending page, which is something that they definitely take a look at when they're posting articles and worried about how they're going to get the clicks and make headlines, they are finding out that the average person has lost quite a bit of interest in that topic. So they are not going to put it front and center when they know they can get more clicks based on things like those murders that happen in Idaho, right? So let's talk about how people that are actually directly affected by what's going on in that part of the world right now are responding to the fact that this nuclear threat isn't going away. It's getting worse, and people are actually waking up to the idea that they might one day wake up to a nuclear blast and have to do something about it. Now, this article I found to be very interesting because it talks about what people in Kiev right now are doing in order to prepare for a nuclear war. Okay, and this article came out December 14th, so it's relatively new. And I thought that there were some interesting tidbits here that I wanted to share, as well as some things we could probably chuckle about, because the writing is from the Washington Post. So keep that in mind when we're going through this article, because you can tell that people of a certain mindset don't necessarily tend to understand preparedness or even any of the basic gear and functionality of equipment we regularly talk about here in the community. They think is like some kind of space technology they've never heard of before. So I find that to be really interesting. But shelters, backpacks, and FM radios. Kiev prepares for nuclear war. Okay, so now down here, we talk about how Sergei Dimitrov, he will survive the blast, but die anyway from hunger, thirst, or cold. Now, I want everyone to keep that in mind because a lot of people live under that mentality. Well, if there's a nuclear war, I'm just going to die anyway. So what's the point of preparing, right? But this person in Kiev actually has a realistic mindset surrounding the idea of a nuclear war. I'm worried about dying from hunger, thirst, or cold after the bombs go off, not from the bomb directly, which is what we should all be concerned about because the bomb is going to either immediately wipe you out or make life after extremely difficult. It's not that everybody gets wiped out all in 1 second together, right? So this has a good concept in their mind as to what it is they're preparing for. So he has assembled what he calls his nuclear backpack, crammed with enough provisions and survival paraphernalia, which is what I'm going to start calling all of my go bag and bug out bag gear. It's no longer survival equipment or anything like that. It's just paraphernalia. All right. That way, if I ever get pulled over with my go bag in my truck, I will let the police officer know promptly that my bag's full of paraphernalia in case this ever becomes an issue. Now, this will survive or let him sustain for a week. Okay. So it's a bug out bag he's got ready to go. We all know exactly what they're talking about here, right? Pavlo Huck, who has compiled a similar pack, is kitting out his basements of his home and his workplace and has rented a house in the countryside, planning to equip it with a generator, food, and fuel. His worry is that friends and relatives who have shrugged off the threat will die because they have not taken similar precautions. And that's a huge worry we have here in the preparedness community. And this person is going the extra mile to not only make sure they have their basement ready and make sure their house is prepared, but they actually went out and rented a home in the countryside that they're also trying to stock up, and they're concerned about everybody around them because none of them are doing any of this either, right? So that is 100% relatable to people within our community, I assume, right? We all know plenty of friends and family who do nothing to prepare or do the bare minimum, and this person's going above and beyond to the point of even renting a home somewhere else just so they have somewhere else to go if need be. So these are all interesting things and possible tips or suggestions you might want to jot down if you're worried about what you'll do in this type of scenario, especially if you're in somewhere like a major metropolitan area, because maybe renting a cheap house or a cheap shack in the countryside, if you can afford that extra monthly payment, could be worth something just to have somewhere to go. Yeah, you might not own it, but legally you have a right to be there. So that gives you something to consider at least, right? Now, this I actually really appreciated as well. Natalia Solima fears only that she will be separated from her 5-year-old son, Misha, and she has been drilling him on the importance of following adults to a shelter whenever sirens sound. She won't let him out without his own version of a nuclear backpack, a school bag containing a Transformers toy, snacks, and his favorite book, The Boy Who Lives with Dragons, right? So understand that this is a good approach for parents who are worried about their kids during these types of emergency scenarios. What is my kid going to do, or what are they going to have on them? They should have basic necessities of survival, right? Some food and some water, and that's a good idea. Snacks that they're used to and they want to eat that'll make them feel comfortable. But then this person also gives them a book that's their favorite book, so they have something to entertain themselves with, another comfort, right? And then they also have a toy that's probably their favorite toy. So a lot of things that are important to this child that might help them get through this situation that can be very difficult most times. So all of these things are reasonable and practical, if you ask me. And these are people who are experiencing all this right now. Now, some of the people, the experts, how things like without knowing the size of the nuclear device that might be used or the location where it might hit, it's hard to know what preparations to make. Right? And that's true. So that's what I was trying to allude to in the beginning when the guy who was studying the backpack basically said, "I'm not worried about dying in the blast because if I do, I do. Right? It doesn't matter what happens right then and there. But if I don't die in the blast, I have to be worried about what happens afterward." And that's exactly even what the officials there, who are the experts, Yulia Balashevka, who heads the Emergency Preparedness and Radiation Monitoring Department of the State Scientific and Technical Center for Nuclear and Radiation. Yeah, okay, I got that out. That was more than I anticipated before I started reading that. But that's exactly what they're trying to say in the sense of we don't know where this is going to hit. We don't know how big it's going to be. So we really don't know what to tell people in the sense of you need to worry about hiding in a basement. And you need to worry about evacuating, right? It's hard to just give different regions all different instructions based on the fact that you don't know exactly who's going to be affected first. And in case you're new here, we do drink coffee on this channel. So make sure you're well caffeinated before you join me so you can spit sentences out like I just did without even trying. Okay. And the other thing they also mentioned here, I thought was interesting. This is where the Washington Post is going to show their colors. People of a certain, let's just say, mindset don't tend to really understand a lot of this stuff. Right? So listen to this, just because I thought you guys might actually get a little bit of a kick out of the description. Okay. He has packed enough dry food and water to last a week, along with thermal underwear, a gas cooker, a sleeping bag, iodine pills, an elaborate device that includes a flashlight, an FM radio, and a wind-up charger. So, this elaborate device, right? We all know it as an emergency radio, right? But according to the Washington Post, this is an elaborate device. Now, we also have people who are making secondary plans because they don't plan on surviving and they don't think they're going to live. And I want to bring your attention to this, not because the way I'm going to say it won't cause any problems, but the conversation surrounding what they were planning is basically NSFW, right? But what I'm trying to say is that this tells you what a huge amount of people actually prescribe to when it comes to how they'll deal with something like a nuclear war. I'm going to die anyway. Might as well go out today, right? Yes, pun intended. A Telegram channel summoning residents to an adult organized event, let's just say, on a Kiev hilltop in the event of a nuclear strike, drew 15,000 subscribers before it was removed from the social media platform. Some shrug off the threat, saying that if there is a strike, everyone will die anyway, right? And that's the problem. It's a terrible mindset to have. You won't die, even if you think you're going to die. You probably won't, and then you're going to be really screwed after. You're going to go, oh crap! I thought I was going to die, and now I'm not dead, and now things are really bad, right? So, just interesting article all around. And this is what people in Kiev are expecting now and through next year. Nuclear war, basically. That's where they're at. So for the mainstream media here in the States to constantly talk about how the threat level seems to have gone down and people are more relaxed and it's definitely starting to cool off a little bit. Whereas the people who are literally living there are like, oh, prep in my basement, I think we're going to get nuked, should tell you something, right? And these anticipations and expectations of what we're talking about for next year, these are things that we're just reviewing and reading right now together and saying, okay, this is a possibility. I should be prepared for it, even if it's unlikely. Right? And then as we go on, we're going to discuss, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, right? We're going to discuss things that are going to be happening globally, in different areas around the world. We're going to talk about some geopolitical stuff, and we're going to move right into domestic stuff that's going to be happening here in the United States that will affect us directly, even if none of the geopolitical stuff happens. But the reason I wanted to cover this, let's just call it more sensational topic first, because in all honesty, it is more sensational, right? Well, the reason I want to cover that first is because it's the catalyst that can lead to very, very bad things. Whereas everything else we're going to be talking about when it comes to domestic issues are more related to, economic crisis and things that are not necessarily in our control, but can be somewhat adapted to a certain degree. But might not necessarily spur something as dangerous or as extreme as like a nuclear war, right? So that's why we're kind of doing this based on priority of danger. This is what you would call it. Now, the baby car says audio issues. Audio is off. Okay, let's see here. Can you guys hear me yet? No? All right. Well, that's a problem. I don't like that problem. Let's see. Audio issues, huh? Give me 1 second. I will do what I can to fix it. Okay. It says it's on. Can you hear me now? Let's do this. Check. Can you hear me? Have I fixed it? If you can hear me, let me know. Okay. I believe we have it fixed. Okay. All right, still choppy though. Got it. Better. Okay. Hey, all I did was switch microphones. Give me 1 second. I'm going to listen to myself really quickly so I can see how it sounds. Got it. Better. Okay. Hey, all I do. Okay, I switched microphones. I don't know what happened to my main microphone. I apologize for the audio issues. Hopefully you guys understood what I was trying to get at when it came to the last situation. Yeah, I know. I'm not even like a tech guy. I was just like, button says microphone. It says it works. Click the other one, I guess. Good. It worked. All right. Adapt, right? We're preppers. You should be able to adapt to anything, even if it's technology related. You can handle it. I promise. Now, 10 by 10 coming through from Airborne. I appreciate that as well. Florida prepper. Audio sucks. Well, doing the best I can. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and move forward. If you guys have any more audio issues, please let me know in the chat. Okay. Let's see here. So, Center for Strategic and International Studies. In case you guys don't know, they are the ones who put out information surrounding global crises and how close we are in the sense of existential threats around the world. Okay, so here's what I want to go ahead and review here really quickly. Everybody's still saying 5 by 5, much better, loud and clear. Pony Girl, thank you for letting me know. All right, So, according to the CSIS, a world in crisis, the winter wars of 2022 and 2023, okay? Now, here's something I want to read to everybody just so you guys have an idea of what we can expect according to the CSIS, whose whole job is to study these different strategic issues that are going on around the planet, all right? The Emeritus Chair in Strategy at CSIS has prepared a detailed net assessment that exceeds rising levels of risk and confrontation and the kind of futures that may emerge out of these different crises, confrontations, and conflicts and trends. I just can't talk, apparently. It focuses on the current level of political, economic, and military risks that shape the world in the winter of 2022 to 2023, but also examines key strategic trends and military developments, okay? The assessment shows that war does not have to mean actual military conflict between the nations involved. Avoiding or minimizing actual combat has never meant peace. As Sun Tzu pointed out in The Art of War well over 2,000 years ago, war does not have to involve the use of military force or any form of actual combat. His statement that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting reflected many of the conflicts in China in his own time, has applied to other states and cultures throughout history, and applies to many of the confrontations and gray area conflicts that exist today. Okay, so understand that this is exactly what we're seeing happening with these major superpowers around the world right this second. The first part of this net assessment, oh wait, did I already read that? Either way, the first part of this net assessment focuses on the level of confrontation between the major powers, the U.S. and its strategic partners, Russia and China, in the near to mid-term. It shows that this confrontation has grown far more serious in the last few years and now affects many areas of the globe. It also shows that many aspects of this confrontation are now the equivalent of Sun Tzu's goal of subduing the enemy without fighting. The confrontations and rivalries between the major powers have become the equivalent of political and economic warfare and competing efforts to use military power to achieve strategic objectives without direct combat. So, I think a lot of us have been saying this for quite some time, but we all know that this is the case. We are definitely in a war right now, regardless of whether or not we're seeing open kinetic combat on battlefields, right? What we're seeing is economic and cyber warfare happening, and the war of attrition, right, happening all over the world, and people are not necessarily aware of how things like economic warfare work. So when they see all these different things occurring, they don't really put one and two together. Now, people in this community definitely do, because we are, I'm not going to say paranoid, but we're skeptical, right? So we have to at least always kind of read between the lines, and we all kind of see what's been happening. But when this turns into a kinetic war of some type, because it will likely at some point become that, due to the fact that once you break someone down economically through attrition and everything else, at some point they're going to have to do something to get out of the corner, or else they're going to literally fail and fall. And I'm sure a lot of these major nations aren't going to just allow themselves to fail and fall without a fight. So we're having issues when it comes to the fact that these wars are being pushed. And then understand that the CSIS has all these different wars that they're worried about throughout 2023, okay? They're worried about the winter war in Ukraine, the winter war between the West and Russia in economics, politics, and energy, the winter war in conventional force modernization and buildups by the U.S., NATO, and Russia, the winter war in nuclear forces and deterrence between the major powers, the winter war in precision strike capabilities, air missile defense, and emerging disruptive technologies, the winter war in going from cooperation and competition with China to confrontation and active war planning, the winter war in the Middle East and the Gulf, the winter war in the Koreas, the winter war in the gray area, spoiler and proxy warfare, the winter war in fragile, divided, authoritarian, and undeveloped states. So basically, the entire planet, right, is what they just described. And there's a whole report here you can read. I wasn't going to go through the actual report with you all here, but I will put this link in the chat in case anybody wants to read the report for themselves, just so you have an idea of what this strategic think tank specifically thinks is a problem coming into 2023 related to global crisis and combat, confrontation, everything else related to war, right? So that is something that you have to consider and understand, that when these supposed experts on the topic are letting you know that these confrontations are becoming more and more likely, especially throughout next year, we should all prepare for the idea that a real confrontation will occur. And I think we all likely already are, but it's just a reminder that it's not just us, right? It's easy to get kind of stuck in the bubble of the prepper community and say, well, he said that we're going to have World War III, and she said it was World War III, and this other guy said it was World War III, so likely World War III is going to happen, right? But if you're only talking to preppers, it's very easy to come to that conclusion and say, well, like, according to everybody I know, World War III is already started, right? But when you actually get it from these strategic think tanks and these sources of information that are specifically designed in order to find out how likely these events are going to occur, we can then kind of verify or somewhat validate some of our own information to say, oh, crap, all right, it's not just us. Other sources are actually saying the same thing. So now we actually need to really take this threat seriously, understanding that it's not just, conjecture within our community where we're all trying to figure out exactly what's happening. Right. So, hey, Joel Silva, what's up? Glad you made it. Desert 1776 says, so they're optimistic. That's good. And then Grisio Nemo, Winter World War III. I do like that because it's like WWW and it's World War III, and you get all three of those things together. It's, you might be good with branding. I think you should probably get into politics or maybe graphic design or something like that. You got an eye for it, I can tell. And then yes, Prepper Now, thanks for being here, by the way. And yes, I agree. It is coming soon, even if we don't want it to. So let's go ahead and move forward and let everybody know that these things have happened here in the United States when we're talking about the type of warfare the CSIS was considering being an issue, more so than just actual kinetic battlefield deployment, right? So what does that mean when I say that? Well, just be aware that Russians hacked into America's electric grid. Here's why securing it is hard, okay? This happened. Like, this is not something that is unfamiliar, okay? Hackers taking down the U.S. electricity grid might sound like a plot rip from a Bruce Willis action movie. They know they meant Die Hard, okay? It's Christmas season. We can talk about Die Hard. But the Department of Homeland Security has recently disclosed new details about the extent to which Russia has infiltrated critical infrastructure like American power plants, water facilities, and gas pipelines. This hacking is similar to the 2015 and 2016 attacks on Ukraine's grid. While DHS has raised the number of the Russian utility hacking incidents it detected from dozens to hundreds, it still maintains that this infiltration has not risen beyond scouting mode. Russia denies having any role in the hacking, yet the specter of Russian sabotage in the U.S. now seems more realistic than it used to. Okay, now, basically, you can't protect everything, and this is just part of the deal. And the only reason I really brought up this article was to remind everybody that the seeds are already planted. When things go hot, when things go kinetic, there's a lot of things already set up and ready to go if that time comes. And our infrastructure is probably filled with Trojan horses and backdoor programs that will allow access from foreign entities to go ahead and shut things down, or even worse, do things like what happened in Florida with the water becoming basically poisonous and all sorts of different things that you can do regarding our critical infrastructure. So understand that these things already exist, and all they have to do is pull the trigger, basically. And that is not something we all want to see. And in fact, it should be a reminder that there's possibly some of those things that are keeping some of what's going on in Eastern Europe right now from escalating further, right? Because understand, if Russia has been planting these little seeds in all of our infrastructure using, cyber warfare, hacking, right? The United States has done the same exact thing, if not to a higher level, right? So understand that there's a lot that keeps everybody at bay at this point in time, because it's not just, oh, well, if you hit us with a missile, we're going to hit you with a missile, right? It's like, oh, if you hit us with a missile, we'll shut down your entire electric grid. And then the response is, well, we'll just shut yours down. Not if we shut yours down first, what are you going to do, right? Use a generator to hook up the entire internet? So understand that there's a lot in play and that our infrastructure is already breached. It's not that it has been breached. It's not that it's being breached right now. The breach already occurred a long time ago, and it doesn't just close on its own. It's a breach that stays open because those things have already been accessed, and now they are just accessed. So 2023 is going to have a lot of cyber warfare and a lot of cyber attacks. 2022 had quite a bit already, and we don't hear a lot of reporting on it. And you have to question why, because sometimes the reporting matters. Like sometimes your information is what was leaked or stolen, right? But people just don't even know that that's what's happening because it barely ever gets reported. It's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. So, but here we are, right? It just is what it is. So now, looks like it's somebody's birthday. Happy birthday, Don. There you go. So, and just so everybody knows, I want everyone to be aware. YouTube has recently had like a glitch where your name might not show up correctly. And it has happened before where people's names have changed to like their real name. or people's names change to this weird like user ID that's like FYJD167423329JX, right? And so all this weird stuff's been going on, and it's different on the app than on the desktop. And I'll load the comment section sometimes, and a name will be one way, and then I'll reload it again, and it'll change back to a different way. So just keep in mind that there's been some weird things happening on YouTube related to your name possibly being revealed. So check your name and how everything shows up, because I don't want to accidentally say somebody's name if they don't want their real name to be known, but somehow it was tied to their YouTube account, so therefore it shows up magically. And I don't want anyone here to think that I'm ever trying to like dox anybody by saying whatever name is displayed in this live chat, because I see whatever I see. It's not me trying to figure you out. It's just that that's what's listed, so that's what I'm saying at the time, because I have to read these names pretty quickly and just go with it. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that, because that's a real thing that's been happening, okay? And it's happening more lately, where it's like a new update went through, which I know, being on this platform, that on the back end I've been told about a lot of these new updates, right? Well, from this new update, I've seen a lot of the names and the usernames suddenly like change. So just be aware of that, especially if you're very concerned with your OPSEC, that you might want to double check that you're not showing up incorrectly in live chats or on comment sections, okay? Okay, now, how about this whole Moore County, North Carolina situation, the attack on the power grid there? What are the updates there? Well, I just want everyone to know, and I'm not the type that usually comes out and says, like, I told you so, right? But my thought process regarding this situation was that nobody would be arrested or charged or found, right? And so far that hasn't happened. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring up here, is that we had on December 3rd, 2 substations failed, right? We know what happened. There was an attack. This was posted today, the 19th, okay? All right, and then let's see, I want to get to, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack, and law enforcement has not publicly identified any suspects. Understand that this is what the expectation probably should be with these types of attacks, because anything you can do from far enough away without leaving a digital footprint, if possible, is going to be hard to track down. And people know these things, and that's why these perpetrators are doing the things they're doing. And this is why it could easily be bad actors. It could be, infiltrators. I don't know. There's a million possibilities here. And of course, the mainstream media kind of ran with the initial, right-wing extremist story on this whole thing. But until people are caught or arrested, there's really no proof of that other than just speculation. So I thought it was interesting that they ran with that so quickly. But, well, I guess I'm not that surprised, right? But what I'm trying to say is that this could have been anybody. And I would be concerned that these are test runs in some way. And if they're not, if they're exactly what the mainstream media said they were in the beginning, then that's probably best case scenario in all honesty, because it's not as nefarious as like foreign bad actors coming over to our soil to do terrible things and to get ideas about what they could do in the future during some kind of a kinetic warfare scenario. So these are things I just wanted everyone to be understanding of. Okay, now they do have multiple search warrants in relation to the attacks, and they're sealed, so they can't talk about them or anything like that, but they have these search warrants, and so it's possible they might find who did this. And the other thing I warned about when I reported on some of this during my recent video about, like, you should be worried about taking some of the blame here, because they're clearly pointing the finger at certain types of people, and they're clearly concerned about the fact that, all it takes is a high-powered rifle to do these things from really far away. And you should understand that will never not be used to someone's advantage, right, when it comes to things like gun control. So, but just keep in mind that even if they do catch somebody at this point in time, which now we're kind of far removed from the event in the sense of trying to find somebody red-handed, right? So if they catch somebody at this point in time, just make sure you go through the information with at least a relatively moderate level of skepticism, because it would be more beneficial for them to prove that they could catch these people, probably even for national security, in all honesty, for you and me in the sense of being Americans. It would be in our best interest for somebody to get caught and prosecuted for this, because it wouldn't let everyone know how easy it is to get away with, right? And for people like us who do not want the power grid to go down, because I definitely don't, and I know none of you do either, we don't want people running around thinking they can do these things. And so, yeah, for us, it'd be better if someone got caught. And I would just be concerned that person wasn't necessarily responsible, but at least in the sense of optics and the media and the global stage, it would show that, like, we're not incompetent. We'll find you if you ever try this again. So keep in mind that these things are necessary to clean up. Let's just say that. Okay. Now, Concerned Patriot, hello from Miami, hello from North Dakota. Now, I grew up in Florida, and I am keen to hot weather, and now where I am, I believe it's negative 17 or something like that. So, it's cool. I'm just doing my thing. It's no big deal. Here, I'll go ahead and show you guys something here real quick, because why not? It's not going to hurt anything. Minot is not necessarily where I reside, but it is called Magic City. So I find it to be within the realm of, what I like to do. Okay. But here's the temperature right now, negative 15 degrees. So that should just tell you everything you need to know. Okay. Negative 15. Wind is 8 miles per hour. So really enjoying this really, really nice weather. So thanks for chiming in from Miami and reminding me of where I came from and that I'm here now. Okay, Concerned Patriot. All right, so now what's going on in 2023 when it comes to military stuff? Well, we know the military spending is going to go through the roof because it already is. Military spending surges creating new boom for arms makers. Now, here's something I want everyone to keep in mind. A big problem we've had over the last couple of years has been a shortage of ammunition and a shortage of, well, not necessarily firearms, but an increase in price, right? Everything's gone up in price, especially like surplus stuff. Now I look at the price of like a Mosin Nagant or an SKS, and I'm just like, never mind, I guess. Like, no thanks. An M1 carbine is like $2,400. I don't even know what to say about that, okay? Anyway, moving on from there. The combination of the war in Ukraine and concern about longer-term threats from Russia and China is driving a bipartisan push to increase U.S. capacity to produce weapons, okay? The prospect of growing military threats from both China and Russia is driving bipartisan support for a surge in Pentagon spending, setting up another potential boom for weapons makers that is likely to extend beyond the war in Ukraine. Now, do we have the budget for this? No. Technically, we're, $32 trillion in debt? So does the budget matter? I don't think so anymore, because at $32 trillion in debt, who cares, right? The money's not even real. If you think we'll ever pay that back, I don't know. Maybe we'll discover unobtainium, I guess. But otherwise, we're never paying it back unless we go to war with people we owe money to, and then we're just going to declare bankruptcy, basically, and say, wipe it clean. We got to start over because, things are different now. So just keep that in mind. But here's the thing you have to look at this as. If weapon production ramps up and everyone in the small arms and even the large arms in the sense of missiles, bombs, fighter jets, tanks, all the stuff that you and I don't have access to, all of that can potentially help us in the sense of procurement and affordability when it comes to things that are related to these types of items. So that is a bonus, I guess, that you can take from the situation. But it's looking like 2023 might see some beneficial scenarios unfold in that department. And the same can be said about ammunition regarding that as well. Ammo manufacturers ramping up to meet consumer demand. This is from December 17th, okay? There was no shortage of introductions and announcements from ammunition companies in 2022. New cartridges like this year's 30 Super Carry grab attention in headlines, but there's a trend quietly gaining momentum this year, one that holds a promise of making those dreadful periods of ammo shortages shorter, or at least reducing their frequency. The development is welcome news as we're finally emerging from 2020 and 2021 social unrest-related run on ammo. That recent pain likely erased some memory of the frustration enthusiasts endured during the 2013 similar shortage, one that dragged into 2015, right? So talking 2 years back then. But understand that there's a lot of new facilities being put into place here in the United States right now that will help produce more ammunition, which likely is to help things on the war front, right, in many ways, or to expand our capability when it comes to the military. But it also will benefit people like us, I'm sure, in some form or fashion, especially if it just becomes an availability issue. Maybe it won't help affordability a whole lot because inflation is just killing us, but it might help us access more of what we want. Okay, so Federal Ammunition, for example, began expansion of its warehouse capacity in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. The multi-million-dollar 100,000 square foot warehouse is being constructed on the eastern portion of the company's property. Fiocchi's doing it, Norma's doing it, Ammo Inc. is doing it, True Velocity's doing it, Freedom Munitions is doing it. Everybody's doing it. Wilson Combat just opened a new Lay Defense facility in Texas. I know Palmetto State Armory is getting ready to unfold their ammunition capacity and manufacturing. So there's a lot of good news, I guess, in that relation for 2023 as a positive note to possibly help us out in that department. So I just wanted to bring that information up as in a way to say, maybe there's some things that we could look forward to in 2023 before we start getting into more negative stuff, okay? Now, okay, the other thing I want to mention regarding that type of conversation is what's happening right now in Taiwan, okay? So we know geopolitics, things are getting hairy. We know that military is surging in the sense of what they're trying to do in the sense of defense budgets and stuff like that. Here's what's happening in Taiwan. Now, we know why, but this should remind everybody, like this Wolverines poster back here, this is because these things are real for some people around the world right now. And it's not just a fairy tale. These things really happen. Doesn't matter what year it is or when or where. People get invaded sometimes, okay? So in Taiwan right now, Taiwanese flock to civil defense training ahead of potential Chinese invasion, right? This is from today, literally December 19th. We have no right to ask others to help us if we are not prepared to defend ourselves, Taiwanese Foreign Minister Joseph Wu said, okay? Shantai Wright, a laptop salesman, fires an airsoft pistol during firearms training at Camp 66, a firing range and training facility in Taipei, Taiwan on December 6th, okay? This is a laptop salesman. Oh, is he LARPing? Is that what half of the firearms community would accuse this guy of? Or is he actually worried about being straight up invaded by China at any point in time now and trying to get some training and some level of proficiency in order to protect him and his family when that time comes? And oh man, look at this guy wearing a micro chest rig and wearing a Safariland UBL drop leg holster there. And oh man, I can't believe this guy is wearing all this ridiculous tactical gear and being a silly LARPer. This guy's not LARPing. He's literally worried about getting invaded by China. It's being talked about all the time. They have missiles flying over their island. They have war, time drills going on all around them on a regular basis. I mean, they are literally afraid of an invasion at any moment. And the people there are taking things into their own hands. And at the same time, our government, especially the Pelosi's of the world, like to go there and stir the pot and make things even more dangerous probably just by being there. And then they want to come back here to the United States and talk about why people like us don't need to do these things. We don't need AR-15s. We don't need this type of gear. We don't need to get this type of training, yada, 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 yada. And here in Taiwan, they're actually going out and using airsoft pistols to at least get some kind of training and figure out what they can or can't do based on what they're allowed to have access to, okay? Vanessa. We're just going to call her Vanessa, I guess. Okay? Pretty sure it's probably not her real name. Vanessa thinks the Chinese invasion of Taiwan has already begun. She sees it every day in the tide of disinformation on social media, messages designed to cause panic in the population and undermine faith in her country's young democracy. All the fake news, we must understand this is part of war conditions, she said. As for the physical invasion, the 30-year-old IT professional believes it is coming soon and expects it to define the rest of her life. The tension has been there ever since I was born. But recently, with China's internal crisis, they increased the pressure, she said. She expects the blow to land within 5 to 10 years. That's why Vanessa has given up a day of her weekend and paid about $30 to join 40 others in a classroom in an unremarkable Taipei office block to learn how to prepare. There they learn about different weapons available to both sides and likely invasion scenarios, attacks on infrastructure, a tide of fake news, and potentially kidnapping of political leaders. There's a heavy emphasis on the need for good information and the dangers of dis and misinformation. There's also work on first aid with an emphasis on treating catastrophic injuries. The lectures include contours of modern warfare, cognitive warfare and information manipulation, and a session on emergency first aid. The students are advised to wear goggles and gloves in case of an invasion to guard against chemical and biological weapons, and are taught how to triage patients and judge whether or not an area is safe. A final session kept under wraps and barred from the media is on seeking shelter and battlefield preservation. Okay, they're doing this in Taiwan right now. IT professionals are spending money and taking a day out of their week to go do this and learn this stuff. Everything I just said is what we do in the preparedness community. Everything. But people will mock this type of stuff if they're not under an imminent threat of invasion, I guess, right? If America was under an imminent threat of invasion, I guess a lot of people here would think, oh, maybe walking around in all that gear and actually getting out in the woods and learning some survival skills and learning how to shoot and how to get everything set up and, correctly put together so that you're as efficient as possible might not be a terrible idea. Oh, first aid training, I guess that's worth having. Oh, triage, that's something you might need to know about. All those things they just went through. Oh, and wait, they talk about battlefield preservation and they're talking about warfare and how to
conduct it properly. I mean, you do that here and people call you a radical or a psycho or whatever. Like, you know, people want to get all crazy on you about it. And this is what they're doing now as part of their daily lives because of how concerned they are about a true invasion occurring. So, yeah, this is in 2022. And do I think 2023 can have some interesting developments over in that area in China and Taiwan? Yeah, I do. Of course I do. I think that can happen at any point in time. But I am glad to see that the people in Taiwan are literally taking it seriously and doing all these things that are often frowned upon here in the States, which is ridiculous because we have things like the Second Amendment, which should tell everybody there's a reason why we have those types of things within our Constitution. But I digress. All I'm worried about is the fact that these people are actually concerned about something that could really actually happen to them. And here in the United States, people will demonize someone like me or someone like you just because we do stuff that they think is unnecessary and in many ways extreme. And wow, surprise, people who are actually afraid for their lives under imminent threat of invasion from a world superpower are doing those exact same things. And it's being reported on in a way that is actually from the foreignpolicy.com, basically saying like, oh, they're doing this because they need to and it's important and blah, 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 blah. But I guarantee you they wouldn't write this about people like me over here in the United States the same way at all, right? I mean, look at this. Civilians try out unloaded bazookas at the MOA exhibition trade show in Taipei on December 4th, right? I'm just saying, these crazy people over there in Taiwan, I can't believe they would think they need to do any of this stuff. Come on, man. Yeah, that was a pun, I swear. Anyway, all right. And I hope you guys understand like that. I get a little fired up during those conversations, but it's not that I'm not out here looking for like confirmation bias. It's just a reminder that like this is not unrealistic to be concerned about, right? And it's not ridiculous to train on this type of stuff. It's not ridiculous to spend time with it. And I get a lot of I'm not going to call it hate, you know, but people give me a hard time quite a bit, you know. Oh, well, you're talking about things like chest rigs and stuff, and none of that's that important. You need to be worried about pressure canning and all you need to have is a bolt action 30-06, right? And it's like, look, man, I get it. There's a lot of priorities in prepping that are more important than firearms training and stuff. I totally get that. Do I think pressure canning and storing food away for long term is very important, and if not the number one priority, as long as you have water figured out? Yeah, of course I do. I'm not an idiot. Of course I think I want to eat food more often than probably anything else, right? But at the end of the day, if something catastrophic happens, it will be nice to have some idea as to what I'm doing and some idea to have some capability, especially against those who have that capability. A lot of people fail to understand that, oh, you don't need night vision and you don't need high caliber rifle and you don't need all this fancy gear and tech and all this stuff, right? We can go as minimalist as we want. We can do that all day long, right? I don't need a tractor. I can just get some mules, right? Well, who cares, right? Because I can just do that. I can get a plow, get some mules. Who needs a tractor that's dumb and it'll fail if I run out of gas or if there's an EMP, right? So you can get as minimalist as you want, but you have to also understand that the threat outside of your realm has access to all of this stuff. So just because you decided to get mules and a plow doesn't mean that someone else is just not going to have a tractor. So the same thing applies to this kinds of stuff. If you're not willing to get out of your box a little bit and say, okay, I want to have a modern combat capable rifle and I want to have training on it, and then I want to have some gear that can complement it, and then I want to have the ability to maybe go the next step and have things like night vision or thermal or whatever else in order to level the playing field and give myself a similar advantage. Well, you're discounting the fact that the guy 2 blocks down from you has all that stuff and might be a psychopath, right? And when he decides he's going to start acting crazy, you're not going to have a good way to defend yourself because he has all the advantages and you have none. So that's all I wanted to mention there, because it's not that I'm like obsessed with tactical stuff. Like someone flipped out on me the other day about being like all worried about tactical stuff. And I'm like, look, a large portion of my channel has nothing to do with that stuff. And in fact, I talk about a lot of other things, but they get worked up when I talk about it once or twice. And then everything turns into like, oh, I'm just trying to be cool or whatever. But look, there are people and there are forces in the world right now that have access to all of this equipment, and they will use it against you, and especially if you don't have it. But they're going to use it against you regardless if you do or don't have it. So why not have it in order to respond in kind if that time ever comes, right? That's just my thought process, okay? Yes, Viv B not wanting to starve is extreme if you didn't know. And I'm glad you're aware of that now, okay? Okay. So, and I'm sorry, I have to go on a rant every so often, okay? Doomsayer, you can have your bolt action 30-06 be your favorite. That's fine. I'm not mad at you about it. Just don't tell me I don't need other things. That's all I'm trying to say, right? Jeez Louise. Like, I wouldn't be mad at anybody for being like, oh, I've got a M1 Garand. I'd be like, cool, man. I mean, I'd prefer something more modern for a lot of reasons, but if that's what you got and you like it and it works for you, great. But don't tell me I don't need my AR because you have an M1 Garand, okay? Now, let's go ahead and talk about things that are happening here domestically. Now, this could be looked at as a positive, right? Oh, this is good. We're improving. Things are good. Oh, wait for it. I'll fix it for you. Don't worry, you know. Okay. Gasoline is cheaper now than a year ago, and it could fall below $3. Well, we did it, okay? Gasoline has fallen to the point where the national average is now cheaper than it was a year ago, even with the war in Ukraine and OPEC plus production cutbacks. Ha! Got them. See, we're fixing the economy. Things are improving. According to AAA, the price per unleaded gallon was $3.32.9, below the $3.34.3 per gallon a year ago, right? I'm saying point just because I don't like how they want me to say that, all right? So whatever. Gas Buddy said there's a good chance the price could fall below $3 nationally as soon as Christmas. Well, thank everybody, because you know what? Finally, our government is fixing the problem. We're finally affordable again. Man, I knew that this White House and administration could do it. You know, they have everything so figured out and well put together that I had all the faith in the world that they were going to help us with this crisis. Wait a second. I can't be talking about this administration or this White House. That makes no sense. Oh, I forgot. U.S. is buying 3 million barrels of oil to replenish the reserves. Oops. Okay. And this article came out 2 days ago on the 17th. The Biden administration said Friday it is buying 3 million barrels of oil to begin to replenish the U.S. strategic reserves that officials drained earlier this year in a bid to stop gasoline prices from rising amid production cuts by OPEC and a ban on Russian oil imports. President Joe Biden withdrew 180 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve starting in March, bringing the stockpile to its lowest level since the 1980s. The purchase, to begin in January, will start to replenish the reserve and is likely to be followed by additional purchases, officials said. Well, hold on now. So is everything better or worse? Oh, it's better because we have used 180 million barrels of our strategic reserve. Okay. So, yeah, gas prices are cheaper, but we're also less secure now as a nation because we've just been basically taking it out of our savings account. Oh, well, at least it's cheap now. Tapping the reserve is among the few things a president can do by himself to try to control the inflation that makes Americans poor and often creates a political liability for the party in control of the White House. Whoa! I wouldn't have expected that to come out of an article from the Courier, but here we are. So just be aware that the gas prices are better, but at what cost? The cost was not cheap, okay? The strategic reserves are depleted, and the most since the early 1980s. So if we go to war, or if we have a multi-front war, a.k.a. Russia and China, or who knows what might happen here in 2023, we're not going to have enough oil to really get through it very easily. It's going to really hurt people like us at the pump, and in fact, we might not even be allowed to get gas. It might be back like in the 1940s when they had to ration it or you only got to come 1 day a week or whatever. So just keep these things in mind because this is a problem, okay? And we are not necessarily better off just because gas is cheaper when it's at the cost of national security. And that's exactly what they did. So I just wanted to mention this for everybody. XK, I actually prefer tortellini over raviolis. I know that might be unpopular, but that's my 2 cents. They tend to hold their form, and they tend to be a little bit more like al dente than a ravioli. You know, raviolis like to fall apart, split in half, all kinds of things. You know, they're harder to eat. I like making good ravioli. Anyway, let's see here. So, just checking in the chat really quick here. Joel Silva, I have a BRB 180. Have you ever tried it? I have not. I have seen them in action. I think they look fun. But I got that used MCX, which is kind of a similar style gas system, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I do like the idea of a piston gun, but I will tell you that direct impingement is cheaper, lighter, and it's the norm in many ways. So I guess for like logistics and stuff, it might still be the better route if you're just going to run like a standard AR. But I do like the BR-180, and I do like folding stock capability, which I do have a bag gun video coming out here very soon. And folding stocks are almost like a necessity if you want to have like a true bag gun, right? So I do like that aspect of them. Now, someone mentioned something I liked just a second ago. Where was that dang comment? Moldy Soldier, good to see you. I appreciate you being here. Okay, so right here, Florida Boy Shuffle. Reserve built at $30 a barrel or less. Now we rebuild at $80 a barrel. What a deal, right? Yeah, and that's another consideration people don't tend to really keep in mind. But I don't know if you guys noticed in that article, it said they've used 180 million barrels, and that the administration right now is looking to buy 3 million to try to start, replenishing. That's not a very big percentage of how much they actually used already now, is it? Okay, so let's talk about more domestic things. Now, here's just a quick list. I wanted to kind of go over this quickly with you because it's kind of what's on everybody's minds, right? 2023, the year of recession. From a preparedness standpoint and from a regular person standpoint, because I know, guys, I'm on YouTube, which means I'm super rich. I get it. But I just want you guys to know I'm not super rich, okay? Have I worked very hard, and do I have some more expensive things that I had to plan out and buy over a long period of time? Yes, but am I rich? Not by any means. And so what I will say is that regular people already feel like we're in a recession. I don't know about you guys, but I certainly do. And it doesn't really matter if the economy, the economists or the Fed or anybody else comes out and declares a recession, right? Oh, the recession is finally here. Now you're aware. No, the economy sucks, and that's all I need to know. And it sucks right now, and it sucks for all of us. So regardless of what you say about a recession, we're feeling the effects of what a recession would feel like regardless, okay? But here's what we should expect in the sense of a recession in 2023 and 5 reasons why we should expect it, okay? Soaring energy costs, and sorry, nerd wallets all over the place over here, but the turmoil in Ukraine has exacerbated the world energy crisis, increasing fuel costs at the pump and placing further strain on the world's already struggling supply chains, okay? Number 2, higher interest rates. Since mid-2022, economists noted that the Fed's interest rate hikes could spark a recession if not handled carefully. Forbes recently reported that out of a survey of 54 countries, nearly all are similarly tightening their monetary policy. These changes could lead to even greater impacts, creating a worldwide recession. 3, rising food prices, right? 4, rising unemployment. 5, global uncertainty and instability. All those things are very true and very obvious right now. So I think expecting like an announced, actually labeled recession in 2023 is pretty reasonable at this point in time. I don't think that we are on our way up. I think we still haven't quite hit the bottom yet, and we have to do that before we can climb back up, right? So things are not getting better per se when it comes to the economy, but I try to be optimistic where I can, but this is the time to adapt, not the time to hold out on, what to expect, down the road for things to just improve one day. We kind of have to continually move forward in order to thrive, right? If you're not moving, you're standing still. So adaptation is key in times like this. So figure out what you can do or figure out what it is that is going to continually still push you forward even throughout these more difficult times, right? Because markets shift and people will shift their focus from one thing to another based on economic conditions. So if you can get ahead of that or have some understanding of it, you might be able to do yourself well rather than just falling apart like many others will. So just keep those things in mind. It is a big important part of prepping. Isn't just adapting to disasters or calamitive type events. It's also to adapt financially to what's happening economically around you, right? And that's not financial advice, so I don't think I have to do the disclaimer, but I will anyway, which means I'm not a financial advisor and I won't give you any financial advice ever on this channel. Please don't take anything I say as what you should or should not do with your money. Now, let's see here. Let's see. We have some interesting comments coming through. Dion Garza, we'll own nothing and be happy to have no firearms. Well, don't worry. Like you said, the government will come save us, so we're fine. Now, what about food? Specifically, food is like the hardest part for everybody when it comes to a recession or economic crisis of any kind, right? Food price outlook according to the USDA. So this is straight from the government, right? Price outlook. Here's the part you need to take away. In 2022, food price increases are expected to be above the increases in 2020 and 2021. In 2022, all food prices are predicted to increase between 9.5 and 10.5%. Food at home prices are predicted to increase between 11 and 12%. And food away from home prices are predicted to increase between 7 and 8%. Food prices are expected to grow more slowly in 2023 than in 2022, but still at above historical average rates. In 2023, all food prices are predicted to increase between 3.0 and 4.0%. Food at home prices are predicted to increase between 2.5 and 3.5%, and food away from home prices are predicted to increase between 4 and 5%. Now, when you look at this, I want you to understand that this is an average between all food, right? They don't focus on one particular food group or another. So when you look at this, you have to understand that you can take these numbers and probably minimum quadruple them for quite a bit of the typical food items you're going to buy for your home. Understand that this 2.5 to 3.5% really is 10 to 15%, right? Because we know that even though it said that food prices only went up, 8% or whatever, somehow I'm paying an extra 33% for my eggs. And that's that's not 8%, but I'm paying 33% more. It's based on different items. But when you average everything together, some things are just cheap no matter what, or at least don't go up as quickly as others, right? So you have to keep that in mind and understand that your grocery bill is always going to reflect the true number for you personally based on what you buy and what your household consumes. And in my opinion and what I've experienced over this past year, we're looking at 4 or 5 times what it is that they're saying in the sense of percentage overall for the things that I actually buy. So yeah, I'm looking at 20 to 25% many times when it comes to the food items and the food staples we have here in our house. And I'm sure many of you are experiencing the same. So keep that in mind, but it is saying straight up from the USDA that 2023 will be more expensive for food. They're saying that the percentage rate increase will be less than it has been over the last few years, but it's still going to increase, which should tell you everything you need to know in the sense of how difficult it's going to be to operate in that environment and feed your family. Now, organ prepping, I guess you figured it out, so good for you. I'm not repeating that, but I understand where you're coming from, I guess. Let's see here. Now, another thing that is very expensive and is something that's necessary for modern society are utilities. Okay, government electricity price forecast ticks higher as consumer advocate warns there's little relief in sight. Now, this is an article from November. This is just to remind everybody what to expect next year, what's coming next, right? So, average U.S. residential electricity prices will reach almost 15 cents per kilowatt hour in 2022 and 15.33 cents kilowatt hour in 2023. Okay, so they are going up. Some bright news. Less of the nation's electricity will come from fossil fuel sources in 2023. No one cares about that, and they need to understand that very, very quickly. We don't care right now. What we care about is affordability and access. I need to have access to power for my home, and I need it to be affordable. I don't care where you get it from or how you make it. I need it to be affordable. Only people that have extra money are sitting there trying to tell people like us that we need to burn less fossil fuels. I need more fossil fuels in my life. Burn it all so I can afford electricity until these things figure themselves out. But for right now, we're in a crisis. The economy is in a crisis. The world is in a crisis. The globe is on the verge of World War III, and we're over here worried about fossil fuels. This is not the right time for that. Times of relative peace, there you go, okay? Sure, do I think that having unlimited renewable energy that's clean is a good idea? Of course, it's a stupid thing to not think so. Yeah, if someone offered me unlimited renewable clean energy right now, of course I would take it. No one would not, okay? But we don't need to force that to be the case right this second while people are already suffering, while the economy hasn't caught back up from terrible decisions that were made over the last couple of years. And then for them to sit here and be like, well, guess what? That doesn't help me, okay? Them burning less fossil fuels in 2023 doesn't make my bill cheaper. In fact, it'll probably make it more expensive. So help me first, help us all first, get our bills to where they're more affordable, and then you can start bragging to me about how you're going clean energy or whatever you want. But if it's going to cost me more right this second when things are already too difficult, then shove it. But, of course, they're going to just keep pushing whatever they're going to push. And they've already made a bunch of investments into crap that isn't efficient enough to actually work yet, but they have to still go through with it because, here we are, right? So, yeah. And here's the thing. I'm in oil country, and they are so busy out here. They're cranking it out. They're working tons of hours. They don't have enough people. There's not enough labor. So we can't even get enough fossil fuel out of the ground either. So don't be bragging to me about that. First, fix my bill. Then we can talk. And here's the thing. I've got friends up here who make good money working very hard out in the oil field, and they can't get enough good labor up here. And yet you'll have people all over this country say, well, I don't have any money, or I don't have a good job, or I can't move, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Well, you know what? You could be like me and move to the frozen Arctic tundra, but actually make enough money to have more of the things that you wish you had rather than complaining about not having them. But apparently in a labor shortage around the country, when we know unemployment is high and we know people aren't working, no one's willing to make those sacrifices to do what they got to do. So, yeah, are my buddies up here working 65, 70, 80 hours a week, sometimes 110 hours a week because there's no one else to do the job and they want the overtime anyway? Yeah. And are those guys really well off in the sense of being able to take care of themselves? Oh, yeah. Do they like living here where it's negative 40 degrees sometimes? Probably not. Oh, well, they still are way better off than being broke and poor in some major city complaining about their Starbucks job, right? And that's not to knock anybody that works at Starbucks. Don't get me wrong. I worked in the hospitality industry for many years, and I don't have any problems with people who are just trying their best to do what they can with what they have. All I'm trying to say is that for a country that has a lot of issues going on, we're really concerned about clean energy, and we have quite a few high-paying open jobs up here in North Dakota that nobody's filling. So that's just where we are as a country. That should tell us all a lot of things, right? Now, one more topic I want to go over tonight. But the Watchman talks about Fukushima fish. All good, man. But I do want everyone to know that there is quite a bit, okay? Nexus said, poor is a state of mind. It is in many ways, and I agree with that. Let's see, Jet. I will tell you the failure that I had in a video here very soon. The only reason I'm not revealing it yet is because I want to make sure let's just say this. I want to make sure I present everything properly and that I don't trash a company that doesn't necessarily deserve to be trashed per se. But, I will say that they're honoring their warranty and everything else. So that is something I can give them credit for, and I appreciate that. And I think companies are just doing what they can and providing the products that they feel will do the job that most people will be needing, let's just say. And not everyone's a psychopath like me who's willing to go out in negative 10 degrees and shoot rifles and test gear and equipment and drop things on the ground and stuff like that to find out what works and what doesn't work. And I'm a psycho. So here we are. But let's go ahead and talk about what else is going on here. So, will the housing market crash in 2023? That's not really the biggest gist of this article I want to review, but there is something to be said about that. The housing market is not anywhere close to what it was, okay? But here's something you guys should keep in mind. Geographic movements. Where's everybody leaving? Okay, that's something that we should definitely consider. San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago, Louisville, Kentucky, Detroit, Michigan, Denver, Colorado, Seattle, Washington. Okay, all the major cities are losing population, which means those people are going somewhere. Now, I don't have any problem with good people from the city wanting to relocate and build a better life for their family, because we know that living out of the city generally creates a better quality of life for many reasons. But not everybody from the city is ready to acclimate or assimilate or anything, and some of them are actually problematic. So we definitely need to be aware of that. If you're moving out of a city to better your life and to get more rural and have land and space and be able to be better prepared, great. I applaud that. I'm one of those people. I mean, I used to live in Sacramento, California area, right? So, you can call me whatever you want. But what I will say, and I did live in the East Bay too. Trust me, I know you guys are going to be like, well, I thought you said this. I lived in more than one place, okay? But what I'm trying to say is, you have to have the right mindset and bring the right concepts with you when you go to these areas, or you will not be invited into the community properly. And that is something you should want to do. If you're going to move to a small town in the United States and you want to have that rural life and get that space and that country air and have that privacy and that ability to be more prepared in the sense of homesteading and everything else related to why you might do that, make sure you're ready to be part of that community and network and meet your neighbors and talk to people, so that you're not that weird person from California who showed up and hides in their house and, you know, doesn't do this or doesn't do that, and then everyone looks at you strangely and then doesn't trust you if there ever is an emergency, because that will be a problem. You'll be that weird outsider who probably votes this way or that way, and I don't know if we want that type of person around here, right? So, and I'm, you know, that's a terrible impression of just, you know, country people, I guess. But what I'm trying to say is that make sure you do like what you should be doing, and don't just bring all your crap with you that you left behind. Now, population change, okay? California is losing population. New York is losing population. Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Illinois, and so is North Dakota. Now, North Dakota is a weird one. Here's something you guys should understand about North Dakota. When oil's booming, the population rises. When it's not, it goes away very quickly, like very fast. So North Dakota is a weird state because you'll have a town that'll have 10,000 people one year and then 7,000 the next. And it's all based on the oil field and the type of production that's going on in the western part of the state. And then, of course, the eastern part of the state is a little bit more, I'm not going to say urban centered, but when you have Fargo and Grand Forks and everything over there, it's a little bit more urbanized. So it's a little more stable population-wise. But over here in the western part of the state, which is, you know, the general area that I'm in, it's up and down constantly based on, you know, the amount of work and the amount of pay and everything else related to the oil field. So keep that in mind. But places like California, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, we know people are leaving those states for the reasons they're leaving those states, right? They're leaving them because they don't trust them anymore. They don't want to be there anymore. They don't like being oppressed. They don't like being told what they can or can't do. They don't like being victims of crime on a regular basis. There's a lot of reasons these people are leaving. And then you can kind of just guess from this map where they're going. They're going to Montana. They're going to Idaho for sure. 3.4% increase in Idaho. Lots of those people are from California. Idaho, be careful, just because Nevada is very Californiaized as well, and eventually Nevada is not going to be the Nevada people moved there for, right? And so Idaho, you could be in that same boat relatively soon, if not already, in many ways. They have Utah, Arizona, Texas, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, right? So you can kind of see where everyone's going. But in the sense of preparedness, this is something to keep in mind. So like where I live, we're actually losing people. So I guess in the sense of competition, it's better for me, right? But if you're in Idaho, you should be aware that a huge population increase has occurred, and it's probably from places where the people that are coming there may or may not have the same interests, right? So all these things just need to be considered when you're game planning your preparedness. If you live in Kansas or Nebraska, nothing's changed for you, so there's no big deal there. So these are all considerations to make. I'm from Florida. I think Florida is a great state. I wouldn't, mind living there again because of all the good policies and everything they have there in the sense of how they approached all the issues during the last couple of years. But at the same time, it's really overpopulated at this point, and it's continually growing. So, you have to kind of weigh out what makes sense or what doesn't. California was a great state in the sense of what it has access to. The beaches, the mountains, the farmland, the people there. There's some really good people there. Believe it or not, I swear to God, there's some great people there. And I have some family and friends there that I love, and there's excellent people there. And if I can live close by or there even without dealing with the problems that are associated with California in order to be around those people more, that would be a great thing. But I can't. And we can't as a family because our quality of life would be much lower. We want to be able to afford the type of home we have now or the land we have now. And the politics just don't work for me when it comes to being a Second Amendment advocate and somebody who cares about those types of things. So we're where we are. All right. Now, keep in mind, this is what the market looks like right now when it comes to the rates. Okay. So you can even look at the interest rates when it comes to mortgages and keep that in mind related to the overall economy. This is much higher than it has been. But the other thing that they wanted to mention in this article is that a long time ago, these were actually really good rates, right? Like back in the day, a 7% mortgage was like a great deal. because like people are getting 14 and 15% mortgages. So just keep in mind that everything is still relative to what's happening during that period of time. And we all know that even though those rates are very high right now, that a long time ago they would have been considered great, and that people would have definitely bought houses with those rates because it would have been a good deal. And now here's the average prices of homes. Now this is something that should concern you. And this is something I really want you to keep in mind when we're talking about this whole situation, okay? With the prices of homes skyrocketing, okay? The whole conversation around you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, right? This is how that's accomplished in many ways. Outprice everyone on everything. And when some people used to say like, oh, I'm afraid I missed my window of opportunity and I'll never own a home. Back in the day, even just 2 or 3 years ago, you would have been like, oh, no, you can do it. You just got to, get this together and figure this out or whatever, right? We might be getting to that point now where like, man, if you don't own a home already, like it is going to get much more difficult to get a house because these prices are going through the roof. They really are. And if you own a home and you can build equity in that home, or if you own it flat out, right? Well, if you decide you want to move or do something different, you already have that large chunk of change in order to work with because of that property. But if you don't, it's hard to acquire something that's that level of wealth basically on your own. So I'm just bringing this up because in 2023, I do think we'll see a housing crash, but I don't think it will be what we expect in the sense of like prices are crashing and everything else. I think it'll be more about a housing shortage mixed with unaffordability. And I think when that happens, it won't necessarily make all the prices go down. It will probably push more towards this whole, WEF type situation regarding, well, since the average home buyer can't afford these homes, these large corporations can just scoop them up and rent them to you since that's the only way you can afford to actually live in these homes now, right? And so I think we'll see a huge takeover in the rental market, which we've already seen in many ways, but I think that'll expand and become more of a barrier to home ownership in the future because those companies aren't going to just start selling off their assets either. They're going to keep them because they can afford to, and they're just going to rent them out into perpetuity, right? Because eventually you'll pay out that cost of that home for them, and then everything past that's just pure profit, right? And they've got time and financial backing, so where that won't be a problem for them to just hang on to and wait it out. So that is what I'm expecting next year. I don't know if that was optimistic or pessimistic or what, but I just wanted to mention all these different things because I feel like that's just where we are. We're in a very difficult predicament, right? It's very hard to like look into the crystal ball right now and be like, this is the next big threat, or this is the next problem we're going to face, or this is where we can see a turnaround. I can't really put my finger on any of those things right this second, but what I can say is that there's so many options right now on the table that it's like playing, I don't know, like that bozo bucket game where you throw the ball and you're trying to make it into a bucket. You might as well just throw it into any bucket, and whatever one it hits is just what happens now, because that's where we're at. Anything can happen at any point, and all the things that are kind of like in the queue aren't very good. So sure, housing crash could be the first thing that happens. All right, well, here we are. Real estate just became extremely volatile, and maybe home ownership's not in the works for some of us right now, okay? Then next bucket says nuclear detonation in Ukraine, right? Okay, well, global markets just went into a huge downfall, and people panicked, and panic buying ensued once again, and everybody is freaking out and buying up all the potassium iodide, right? Okay, what do we do next, right? So, but any order can happen, and any of these things can happen at any moment. So it's just really hard to say that this is what's next. But what I can say is that all the things we discussed tonight are likely to happen throughout next year. And some of them are pretty much guaranteed, right? Inflation, food prices, all those things. But the big ones, the conflicts that we're worried about, the nuclear stuff, everything else related to that, if it doesn't happen next year, then something else probably happened which prevented it. AKA, maybe the conflict ended, maybe some kind of peace agreement occurred. I think those are unlikely at this point, but otherwise, I'd be very surprised if we get through an entire year of open conflict between proxy NATO and Russia and don't have any other escalations, right? I'm not buying it, are you? No, of course not. So that's where we are, okay? Now, we'll look at all of you here in the chat. Moron Prepper, glad you're here. Jarhead, hello and welcome. Michelle the Great, glad you're here as well. And honestly, we got to do what we can. Do the best you can to prepare. Get your families ready. And just enjoy this holiday as well. Merry Christmas, everybody. You know, if you don't celebrate Christmas, happy holidays to you, right? But this is the time you have with your families. And don't just lock down into some sort of doom and gloom kind of portrayal of how things are going to be. When you do have the time you have, spend it wisely and enjoy yourself, okay? Because as much as I prepare, as much as I concern myself with a lot of the things that are happening in the world, I don't let it stop me from having a good time, right? And even though I might look like annoyed when I'm outside in negative 15 degrees and I'm like, I'm out here and all my stuff broke and I'm pissed about it, right? At the end of the day, I'm actually having a great time because this is what I want to be doing. I want to be out testing things. I want to have a good time in the sense of reviewing gear or pushing myself, right? And getting, you know, more physically fit and everything else related to preparedness. And every skill and every lesson I learn is one more tool to put into the toolbox that one day I can rely on if I ever need to. So that's where I'm at. Let's see. The Watchman says invasion comes first. Okay. According to the Bible, that's what he says. So look, I appreciate every single one of you. And like I said, I do have some good announcements coming up. Okay. Next year should be very interesting. We have some really cool partnerships in the works. Okay. And I am hoping everything goes off without a hitch and we have a really solid situation put into place so that I can have more opportunities, more access, and more flexibility to do more on this channel to give you guys better information, the best I can anyway. And look, I'll do what I can to keep it diversified, right? Survival gear, food storage, firearms, you know, information and knowledge, research, everything else. I'm trying my best, you know, comms. I'll do what I can to keep it well-rounded, okay? And just understand that in some places I have more expertise than others, and in some places I have more support for certain aspects of gear and equipment than others. So there's just what I can do is what I will do. But I appreciate all the support. I really, really do. So thank you all so much. I look forward to next year. If you have any questions for me at all, you know where to go. MagicPrepper.com is never a bad option. And besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper.